Chapter 5. How to become fluent in acts of service. Love language number 4. Andre caught a glimpse of himself in the bathroom mirror and shook his head. What a sight. On his knees in front of a toilet, rubber gloves pulled up to his elbows, a can of cleanser in one hand and a scrub brush in the other. If the guys on his rugby team could see him now. Check that. If his father could see him now. The old man was a firm believer in dividing household chores along gender lines. The husband mowed the lawn in the summer, shoveled snow in the winter, and fixed anything that was broken. The wife did everything else. Suddenly, Andre felt sorry for his dad. The old man probably never experienced the payoff that comes from completing a surprise act of service for his wife. Andre grinned as he thought about his own wife's reaction to his latest surprise act. She would come home to find not just a spotless bathroom, but a new shower curtain, rug, towel set, and a toilet paper holder, the very one she'd pointed out in a catalog, and then mistakenly assumed he forgot about. She'd scream, of course, hold her hand over her mouth in amazement, notice and comment on every little detail, right down to the toothbrush holder that was no longer gulped up with dried toothpaste. Laugh in embarrassment as tears rolled down her cheeks. Wrap her arms around him for a long, sensual hug. Whisper in his ear how lucky she is to be married to such a caring, thoughtful, surprising, attractive man. Suddenly, Andre felt sorry for anyone who wasn't him. A hard-earned happily ever after. You might conclude that Andre and his wife are a match made in love language heaven, and you'd be right, though it wasn't always that way. Andre didn't telepathically pick up on his wife's fondness for acts of service the first day they met. He wasn't some linguistic savant who started speaking her love language fluently right away. Andre and his wife endured years of doubt, frustration, annoyance, and confusion as they struggled to make their relationship work and make their needs known to each other and to find ways to meet those needs. In their darkest hours, they questioned whether they were really meant to be together. Even after Andre discovered his wife's love language, he struggled with learning acts of service. He argued that the things he was already doing, putting gas in the car, taking out the trash, bringing home the lion's share of their household income, should count as acts of service. He expected his wife to feel loved based on those things. In essence, he wanted her to change her needs to fit his solutions. It took a while for him to figure out, and then come to grips with, the kinds of acts that meant the most to her. Cleaning the bathroom, for one. His progress was slow but steady. With practice, and more trial and error, Andre eventually became fluent in the acts of service, and you can too. In fact, we can break down the fluency strategy into 3 easy-to-remember parts: impact, initiative, and attitude. If any one of these elements is missing or off-kilter, your attempts to communicate love to your wife through acts of service will be thwarted. Let's first look at the importance of impact. Deep impact. I've got some good news and some bad news for you. The bad news: you could spend an entire long weekend doing chores, raking leaves, preparing your lawn for winter, winding up hoses and putting them away, winterizing your cars, pulling Thanksgiving and Christmas decorations from the attic, putting weather strips on your windows and sliding doors, tuning up your snowblower, cutting logs for the fireplace, and not add a drop to your wife's love tank. The good news: you could bring home Chinese takeout, clean the kitchen afterward, and then put the kids to bed by yourself on the night when she's facing a deadline at work, or is just wiped out after a long day, and overflow that very same love tank. When it comes to acts of service, you're not judged by the amount of time you put in or even by how hard you work. You're judged by your effectiveness, the impact you have. A starting pitcher in baseball may work on his delivery constantly, making sure the release point of his off-speed pitches matches that of his fastball. He may take hundreds of extra ground balls and line drives after practice in a quest to field his position better. He may study hours of film every night, learning the tendencies of various baseballs, batters, and base runners. In the end, though, he's judged on one criterion. Does he get batters out? If the answer is no, none of his other work makes much of a difference. What matters is whether he's effective where it counts. Andre didn't make that connection at first. He worked hard at the wrong tasks, and he failed to make a dent in his wife's love language needs. For someone who takes pride in his work, that can be a tough pill to swallow. Most of us are wired with an instinctive desire to prove our worth as husbands, providers, and caretakers. Beyond that, we want our work to mean something, and we want credit for the things we do. The way things used to be. Many people get married believing their spouse is already fluent in acts of service. They base their belief on the way the spouse acted while they were dating. Many of these people quickly discover that what two people do for each other before marriage is no indication of what they'll do after marriage. The process of falling in love can affect odd changes in our behavior and cause us to do things completely out of character. After marriage, we revert to being the people we were before we fell in love. That's when learning a new love language becomes necessary. In order to become fluent in acts of service, we need to kick that mindset to the curb. We need to let our wife guide us in determining what is and isn't an effective act. We need to let her instruct us on how to make an impact. What does love look like to your wife? What actions make her feel genuinely and spectacularly loved? The answer to these questions will guide your actions. Depending on her personality and your relationship history, she may or may not feel comfortable sharing the answers with you. You may need to put her at ease to help her recognize your genuine desire to meet her acts of service needs. One way to do that is to invite her to compile her ultimate honey-do or honey-do list. The 4 or 5 acts of service that would mean the most to her. Her list might include a household chore she absolutely despises, an idea for taking some pressure off of her, a way for her to free up some time for herself, a project she's dreamed of for years, or other service suggestions. The list doesn't need to be comprehensive. It's just a starting point, a snapshot of your wife's current emotional needs landscape. Once you have it, though, treat it like the valuable resource it is. How do you say ASAP in acts of service? The transition from receiving your wife's to-do list to breaking ground on your first official acts of service is critical. Think of it as a baton handoff in a 4x100 meter relay or a pit stop in the Indianapolis 500. Speed and execution are everything. You may have every intention of tackling the items on her list when you have the time, opportunity, and energy to do so. But in relationships, as in business, sports, and just about any other walk of life, good intentions will only get you so far. In order to make them count, You have to turn those good intentions into something tangible, something appreciable. Whatever goodwill you build up by encouraging your wife to share her ultimate to-do list with you will be squandered in no time if that list gets buried under a mountain of paperwork on your desk. The last thing you want is for your wife to have to remind you of the things you intended to do for her. That won't feel like love to her. Love is always freely given. It can't be demanded, cajoled, or coaxed from someone. That's why it's vital that you take the initiative in completing an act of service on your wife's list as soon as you possibly can. In doing so, you demonstrate your future intentions and give her a sense of just how important her emotional well-being is to you. The most logical thing to do is choose the easiest item on the list and complete that. And if time is of the essence, there's nothing wrong with taking that route. If time is not a factor, however, if you have the resources and wherewithal to do something bigger and bolder, your absolute best strategy is to tackle the item on the list that will mean the most to her, the one closest to her heart. Take on the task and get it done, and done well. Show your wife good results instead of good intentions. When the first item is finished, turn your attention to the rest of the list. Easier said than done, right? Especially when so many other things vying for your time, attention, and energy. The key to initiating acts of service is to make a 3D experience with drive, discipline, and dedication. Drive speaks to your motivation. To keep the reason for your acts of service fresh in your mind, take your favorite picture of your wife along with her to-do list on your bathroom mirror or someplace else where you'll see it every day. Every time you look at the photo, think of how you can show love to the woman in it through an act of service, whether it's an idea from her list or a surprise that you know she'll appreciate. Discipline refers to the scheduling and prioritizing necessary to accomplish some of the more ambitious projects on the list. 6 large garden boxes aren't built, set up, and filled in a day. A custom closet organizer can't be installed in an hour or 2 after work. Some acts of service are going to cut into your already busy schedule. Some may require you to postpone or sacrifice your own chores or pastimes. Dedication is making sure that what gets started gets finished. Dedication and staying committed to an act of service until it can be presented as a token of love. Dedication is what prevents would-be demonstrations of affection from becoming partially completed reminders of more pressing priorities. Remember, every delay or aborted attempt to complete an act of service sends a clear message to your wife. This isn't important to me. Service with a smile. Just as crucial as the actual act of service itself is the attitude in which you perform it. In fact, the right thing done with the wrong attitude can actually cause more harm than good. If your wife senses resentment or irritation in you while you're performing an act of service for her, she won't feel affirmed. She'll feel like an imposition, a bother, a drain on your time and energy. Where is the love in that? For maximum impact, your acts of service should be done with eagerness and excitement to do something meaningful for your wife. They should be done with good humor, even the ones that take you way, way, way out of your comfort zone. And they should be done with humility. Don't call attention to yourself while you're performing them. Don't make a big deal about them afterward. Refuse to play the hero card or the martyr card. Remember who you're doing them for and why. If acts of service is your primary love language, keep in mind that love is a choice and cannot be coerced. You can't use criticism or demands to get what you need. With enough bullying, you may get acquiescence from your wife. She may do what you want, but it will certainly not be an expression of love. A better option is to give guidance by making requests. I wish you would keep the house picked up, sort the mail, phone my mother more often. But you cannot create or demand the will of love. Each of us must decide daily to love or not to love our wives. The doormat conundrum. Of the 5 love languages, acts of service seems to have the most potential for abuse, or at least the perception of abuse. A wife with less than noble intentions could conceivably convince her husband to do just about anything for her, all in the name of love. One fed-up wife put it this way: I have served him for 20 years. I have waited on him hand and foot. I have been his doormat while he ignored me, mistreated me, and humiliated me in front of my friends and family. I don't hate him. I wish him no ill, but I resent him, and I no longer wish to live with him. For 2 decades, that woman performed acts of service for her husband, but they weren't expressions of love. They were done out of fear, guilt, and resentment. How many of them are former or current? How many other well-meaning men and women have similar stories? How many of them are former or current members of the doormat society? A doormat is an inanimate object, something you step on, wipe your feet on, and kick around occasionally. It has no will of its own. It doesn't object to the way it's treated. It serves its purpose. Period. When we treat our wives as objects, or even give them cause to feel as though they're being treated as objects, we eliminate the possibility of love. Manipulation by guilt, if you're a good wife, you would do this for me, is not the language of love. Coercion by fear, you will do this or you will be sorry, is alien to love. Likewise, when a husband's genuine efforts to speak love through acts of service are regularly met with dissatisfaction or indifference by his wife, a reevaluation may be in order. As we mentioned earlier, becoming fluent in a second love language takes time. Mistakes are inevitable. Not every idea will work, especially if the two of you aren't yet on the same page. If, on the other hand, you perform the acts of service that your wife said mean the most to her, and you consistently get criticism or no reaction at all from her, it's pretty safe bet that acts of service isn't your wife's love language after all. Acts of Service Phrasebook. You've committed yourself to becoming fluent in acts of service so that you can express love to your wife. Good for you. As a non-native speaker, you'll find there are times when you're stuck for inspiration. Here are some ideas to get you unstuck. Many men know a chore or chores that their wife has already given up hope of ever seeing done. Surprise her and get the job done. If she asks you to do something, do it. Don't make her repeat herself. Plan to get up a half hour earlier or stay up a half hour later each day for a week, and use that time to plan and perform acts of service for your wife. Think of something she would never expect. Take the dog to the groomer. Reorganize the basement to make room for her home business files. Clean out the pantry and kitchen cabinets. Make dinner. Really cook it, and don't forget the vegetables. Then clean up and don't forget to wipe the stove. Take your wife shopping in the Yellow Pages or online. Let her pick out a needed service, whether it's gutter cleaning, painting, or carpet steaming. Think of your wife's most frequent complaints and go overboard in preventing them again in the near future. Make yourself accessible to her in times of extended grief, such as the death of a parent or pet. Supporting her during those tough times is a great act of service. Don't always announce what you do for your wife. Occasionally perform a covert act of service without saying anything and see how long it takes her to notice. If your wife always seems rushed in the mornings, find a way to give her a few more moments. Take an earlier or later shift in the bathroom. Pack the kids' lunches. Get the coffee ready. Make a list of the skills and abilities your friends possess. Which ones can you call on to perform an act of service for your wife that you're incapable of doing? If your wife enjoys what you do for her so much that she wants to get in on the fun, work together to perform acts of service for other people you know. Before you know it, you'll find that you're spending quality time together while you plan. Consider how you might serve someone or something your wife loves, whether it's a friend, a family member, a fellow churchgoer, or a favorite cause. Run interference for your wife during one of her favorite TV shows. Take care of all the phone calls, kid emergencies, and so on. If you know of other men reading this book, exchange ideas with them to come up with new, workable relationship strategies.